Well, I welcome you here today, whether you're here at Unity Temple, watching on or listening to a DVD or watching on the internet. Today we affirm that life is good, it is going to get better, and every day we can make the best of it. If you're in the midst of a difficult time, or perhaps you're facing a problem you think is just too big to solve, or a challenge that's too big to overcome, or perhaps you just went through an upset or a setback of some sort, don't lose faith, don't worry, don't fear, because the Spirit within you is inexhaustible, it is undefeatable, and it will provide for you whatever you need in regards to whatever hampers your peace of mind and sense of well-being. That is the power of the Spirit within you. In the good book, it says if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you'll have the power to take a problem as big as a mountain and say, move mountain, and the mountain will move. Believe in that, trust in that, have faith in that, and life is going to get better. In celebration of Memorial Day, we not only celebrate and remember those people in the armed services that served and lost their lives, we also remember all of those who've gone on before us. And the day is kind of a bittersweet day. For remembering people that have passed on, there's a certain sadness to it. You know, they're not here anymore. We miss their physical presence. There's a void or an emptiness where they used to be. But at the same time, there's an abundance of joy and an abundance of love because they were in our lives in the first place. And we have memories of good times that were shared with them. And as long as we embrace those memories and lie aside the memories that are not so happy or more difficult, life becomes a pleasant journey. You know, memories are so important to us. If you stop and think about it, when it's our time to leave this earth, and that time will come for each and every one of us, when it's our time to leave, there's only one thing that we can take with us. There's only one thing that the soul possesses. There's only one thing that we can leave this life with, and that's our memories. Am I right? That being the case, the objective is to make sure that the memories that we leave with are not bitter but sweet. So if we have memories now that create a certain disturbance within us that are difficult to handle, that hurt us or that are painful, it is time to lie them down, turn them over to God, and move on our path. We have two objectives. The first is to clear our minds of all those memories that do not serve us in a good way, that do not create a sense of peace or well-being within us. And the other is not to take on any of those memories going forward. You know, my good friend Laura Glazer sent me a piece sometime back about a fellow that was riding in a taxi in New York. And all of a sudden somebody came along and cut the taxi off, and the person yelled out his window and it said some bad things. And the passengers in the back said, you know, how do you do that day in and day out? You know, put up with all of this verbal abuse. And the taxi driver says, well, life is kind of like following a garbage truck. And every once in a while, garbage spills out of it, and you have to make sure that you miss it and you don't drive into it. And he said, people are the same way. People will come into your life and they want to dump their garbage on you, but if you don't take it, if you steer to avoid it, who does the garbage belong to? Yeah, and Buddha said something in the same vein. He said, if somebody comes to you and they offer you something that is of no worth to you, if they, for instance, if they offer you garbage and you don't take it, then who does the garbage belong to? So as we go through life, we can allow ourselves to have a radar perception, and when somebody is not in a good mood, or when somebody attacks us verbally, or they're angry with us or abusive with us in any way, we can shield ourselves from that. We don't have to take that, put our attention into it, create a memory of it that is going to affect us as we move on. In the book of Mark, Jesus says, agree with thine adversary quickly. Agree with thine adversary quickly. He doesn't say agree with thine adversary when you feel like it, or agree with thine adversary when you get around to it, or agree with your adversary when you're dang good and ready. He says agree with your adversary quickly. Now that doesn't mean we have to put ourselves in a position where we're verbally abused. We don't have to put ourselves in a position where somebody continually criticizes us or perhaps even condemns us. We don't have to hang out with the adversary. We don't have to be friends with them. We don't even have to communicate with them. because they're not the adversary. The adversary is the thoughts and the feelings and the attitudes and perceptions that we generate in regards to anything that happens to us in our lives. See, the adversary is within us. Unity was actually started by Myrtle Fillmore. And when she was a young lady, the doctors told her that she had inherited a disease and she had 6 months to live. So she started searching into alternative methods of healing. And at one particular lecture, she heard a gentleman say, "You're a divine expression of God, and you do not inherit sickness." And she thought, I'm a divine expression of God's Spirit, and I do not inherit sickness. And she took that literally. And she went home and she began to pray, and she began to meditate, and she took it to the cellular level. And she started telling her cells, "You're a divine expression of Spirit, and you do not inherit sickness. You're a divine expression of Spirit, and you do not inherit sickness." And eventually she went on to heal herself and live another 50 years. Now, as a result of that, the word spread, and people wanted to know how she did it. And they wanted her to teach them how to pray. So she had little prayer sessions in her house every Wednesday evening. And she was available on the phone 8 hours a day in her little office down at 9th and Tracy, taking calls from people all over the country wanting to know how to heal themselves. Now, from that prayer service continued to grow until today. It's called Silent Unity. They take in over 1 million calls a day. There are people waiting there by the phones 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can call, you can get a person. They will pray with you. And it's just a wonderful way to have a consoling presence available to you at any time. Well, we flash forward 100 years later, and the scientists have discovered what Myrtle actually did was change the memory of the cells. When a new cell is born, it is healthy and whole, but it inherits the memory of the cell it was born from. And so a cancerous cell that gives birth to a new cell will inherit the memory, and it'll become a cancerous cell. And so what Myrtle was actually telling her cells on a very deep subconscious basis was that you don't have to inherit that. You don't have to inherit that sickness. You are a divine expression of Spirit, and you can come forth in all your health and all your wholeness. Now, that's very wonderful, but what does it mean to us? Well, it means that we have the ability to change our memories. And it doesn't have to be strictly dedicated to a health situation, but it can be dedicated to just our general well-being. Every morning when we wake up, we are basically what we remember ourselves to be. It's all in our memory. And if I remember myself to be an angry person, or I remember myself to be an insecure person, or I remember myself to be a fearful person, or I remember myself to be a very hurt and bitter person, when I wake up I remember that and I continue to act that out. But just like a computer that has a memory that you can go in and change, we can go in and change our memory through meditation, through prayer, through affirmation.